Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Brian Yauger. He is the founder and CEO of Lemonhaze, one of the hottest brands in America over the last 12 months in the cannabis industry. Brian, how are you keeping?
Hey, Owen, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited about this.
Delighted to have you on, mate. I've been following over the last 12 months. You guys seem to have skyrocketed with the golf event that you had over in America, and I think a couple of other different events that you're going to be changing the course of how people network in the cannabis industry. Can you maybe give everybody a quick overview of how you kind of went from American football college coach into founding Lemonhaze in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like you take 3 steps backwards and tripped over the dog and fell into cannabis, but it's been an absolute amazing ride. But yeah, you hit that nail right on the head. Growing up and coming out of college, my goal had always been to coach college football, which I did after playing. Did that for 12 years. And as that started, I did that all over the country from schools here in the Big 12 to the Ivy League. And as that kind of started to run its course, I ended up actually moving back to my hometown of Austin, Texas, and starting my first company back in Austin. That was actually a construction company. Did that for a few years when kind of out of the blue, an opportunity came about for me to move to Seattle and get into the cannabis industry when at that time only 2 states, Washington State and Colorado, were legal. So I got in very, very early in Washington State. And after the original reason I had moved there kind of fizzled out, I decided that I really liked the industry and wanted to keep going. So I started what was a company called Tetra, which is a precursor to Lemonhaze. It's what is now currently Lemonhaze. And believe it or not, we actually started as a data company. We were doing a lot of the data for the recreational marijuana industry in Washington State. We started putting on events to promote our data. We started doing those events were strictly business to business industry events. And all of a sudden we looked up and we were having a whole lot of success with events and the data was kind of stagnant. So we moved over full time into events, and that was started in 2015, started in 2019, started expanding nationally. Started getting into Oregon, California, and Nevada. Then this funny little thing called COVID came around. You might have heard about it. Put brakes on pretty much all of our expansion plans. Then, we started looking at an idea of how to come out of COVID with events, and golf was socially distanced. It was outdoors. It made sense. And we just said, let's just limit it to executives for networking, like you talked about, C-suite, VPs, and directors. And it just took off like a bottle ship. And before we knew it, we were doing 8 tournaments around the country in 8 different states. So it was just a ton of fun. And we just keep going with it now.
Amazing. That kind of brings me straight on to the first topic I wanted to talk about. Lemonhaze going for a hole in one with your kind of new networking events. I'm over in Dublin and I kind of heard about it both through golf channels and through the cannabis channels. So it kind of proves to you that the event was a roaring success if it kind of found its way to me without anybody kind of sending any information. I think there's definitely a need, you probably agree, in the industry. There's enough events that people go to, and it's the same kind of circular thing. You go around a couple of booths, and unless you're a sociable person, it's very hard to kind of network at those events. It'll get dominated by a specific kind of personality person, whereas with golf, you're stuck with a group of 4 people. You can get to know that person a hell of a lot better, let them know their industry a lot better. Maybe you have a few different questions that you'll be able to formulate over a couple of hours time. Do you see this being the cursor for you kind of moving into other territories where you're going to have networking events outside of golf? As much as golf will be a success for you guys, do you see other territories for growth?
Absolutely. And it's the perfect segue to get into new states. It's the perfect segue to get into new markets, even markets outside the United States. But yeah, and so it's funny how you said that about the trade show. And that's really where the concept came around, and which has really always been our basis here at Lemonhaze. Is when I just mentioned before, when I got out of coaching, I started my first company down in Austin as a construction company. And I would go and I would do trade shows, and I would sit for 3 days behind a booth, and I talked to 350 people, of which only 8 of them were the ones I actually wanted to talk to, because everybody else was, just a random somebody from a different area. And then I found that after 3 days of sitting at a booth, I was ended up making all my business deals at the after party. So the whole concept of Lemonhaze is really simple. It was kind of eliminate the actual trade show part of it, of all the randoms, and get the exact people you want to network with, put them in some kind of a party, in this case a golf tournament, and at that point you're basically putting the trade show in the after party, and that's where your networking is. And so when you do one of our golf tournaments, not only are you playing with the executives that you want to meet around the country, but we also have cocktail parties before the actual scramble, and then we have the cocktail party afterwards with the awards and everything with dinner. So you have actually, at our events, you have 2 hours before the golf, 2 hours after the golf, and 4.5 to 5 hours during the golf to network with executives from all over the industry, and being able to move that around from market to market, because as you know, we're not federally legal here in the states yet, and so we're only legal on the state level. So normally, if you go from state to state, not a lot changes. But in this case, doing an event in California, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Florida, you might as well be doing them in France, Belgium, Germany, and Ireland. It's just they're totally different. They're totally different industries from each other, and there's people you need to meet in each one of those industries, and that's what we've been able to give people.
Yeah, the layout and the different nuances of government in each state is going to allow for you guys to step in and basically be a great interstate kind of networking event. It's a genius idea, I have to admit, and I look forward to at some stage I'll get over to you guys and I'll get to have a few rounds and throw down because I'm a pretty mean golfer. I like to think myself. So I'm going to move on to the next topic, and it's something that you probably agree with me in this, and a lot of people who actually know what they're talking about will. Budtenders, that he underestimated entry point to consumers. How important do you think budtenders are to brands and their entry point into the consumer? Because I've talked to a number of people, excuse me, on this series of episodes, and some of the smartest guys have been previous budtenders in stores in cannabis or in Canada and in Colorado. So what do you think the future for the budtenders and some of the events and stuff and connection events you see happening for these?
Yeah, and the budtenders, in my opinion, the budtenders are just as important as the executives are when it comes to this industry. So we have obviously with our golf tournaments, you're talking about where all our golf tournaments are limited to C-suite, VP, and directors of those cannabis companies, because those are the decision makers of who's going to buy their trimming equipment, their POS, their data equipment, whatever it may be. However, the budtender is as equally important to the industry as anybody else, and the reason being, the budtender is quite literally the salesperson for every single brand in existence to the consumer. Every like we talked about, every state's different, every country is different. But at least here in the United States, right now, if you walk into a dispensary or a retailer in any state in this country, whatever product you buy is going through the hands of a budtender. But you don't walk up to the shelf here and pull something off the shelf and walk it up to the cashier. You literally walk in, you just talk with the budtender, and you ask them what they have, or you tell them what you want, and if you know what you want, they're going to grab it for you. But 90% of the time, people walk in and say, "I want marijuana," and the budtender kind of goes, "Which one?" And then they have to ask, you're looking for something for energy, to sleep, to whatever, and whatever that budtender recommends is usually what that consumer is going to pay for. So that budtender is the salesperson to for the entire industry, to the entire consumer base in that market. So they're just as important as anybody else.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think when you have full federal legalization over in the States, the M&As that'll happen will then, I think budtenders' real value will come to market then. I think it'll be like having a high-end sommelier in a Michelin star restaurant, the guys who really know what they're talking about and really understand the ingredients, and like a good DJ, know what genetics are coming out before they kind of hit the market, are those kind of guys will be at a premium value.
And I tell you what, I'll give you one step further, and where I exactly agree with you. It'll be in the same way, especially when we do get into federalization, where all of a sudden you'll probably see a lot of the growing in the country, go to certain areas of the country, similar to how grapes are generally done in Florida. You'll see I think a lot of the outdoor growing go to tobacco Tobacco Row or Southern Oregon, Northern California, and it's going to become like wine, where you're going to have these huge outdoor crops that come in, and your 2023 crop is not going to be the same as your 2024 crop, but that budtender is going to be just like a somebody at a great wine bar or wine shop is going to be able to tell you the different vintages and the different years. You're going to start seeing the exact same thing in marijuana, not only when it comes down to simple things like, I hate to use it, but the good old fashioned sativa indica hybrid, but when it comes down to actually your premium products and which crops they come out of and which crops are better than other ones. Same way vintages of wine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the real cannabis consumer doesn't really care about having a high THC content. It's more about a blend of terpenes, a mix of cannabinoids that are basically going to suit whatever lifestyle they fit cannabis into for them. Because I think cannabis is a lifestyle for a lot of consumers, and they're lifelong consumers as well when you get them. It's been a great year for you so far in the last 12 months. What have you got planned for 2022?
So we are doubling down on what we have. So we've identified three segments in the industry to be the most important segments in the industry. One we just discussed, which is the budtenders. The budtenders are the salesperson for every brand in the industry. The second is the actual buyers, because those buyers are decide which products are going into those dispensaries that the budtenders can push. And the third is the executives that we talked about. So currently we're in 12 states doing events with budtenders, buyers, and executives. Going into 22, we are going to expand that now. So we're adding 4 more states onto our repertoire. So we're going to be doing events next year in addition to the states we're already doing, also now in Colorado, New Jersey, Missouri, and Ohio. And that's in the addition to the states we already do of Washington, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Oklahoma, Massachusetts, Florida, Michigan, and Illinois. And then in subsequent years, we'll just keep adding more and more states going on. And we'll just be coming back with events specifically for those budtenders, events specifically for those buyers, and events, the golf events, which we started with, exclusively for those executives, C-suite VPs, and directors. Because at the end of the day, those are the three segments of the industry. Those are the decision makers.
Mm.
The decision makers in cannabis are the executives, the buyers, and the budtenders. And so we do specific events targeted specifically for people that want to talk to those targeted groups to meet with them. And we're really excited. We're really excited to be in 14 states by the end of next year and be in 20-something states by the end of 2023.
Yeah, no, as I said, the more I've researched, the more impressed I am with Lemonhaze and what you guys have been building over there. And I think you've got nothing but success and an upward trajectory for 2022. And as I said, I look forward to lacing up my glove when I get over to America sometime with you guys. We're nearly up on the time. I can't thank you enough, Brian, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. For anybody who wants to check out Lemonhaze, there's the website below, lemonhaze.com. I highly recommend going and checking them out. And if you're in the States and you're a bud tender, you need to be going to one of the events these guys put on, because they're slowly becoming the top of the food chain over in the States. So, Brian, thank you very much again for coming on the show.
Hey, Owen, thanks so much. And let me know whenever you're around one of our tournaments over here. You have got a spot to play anytime you want.
Happy days. Thank you very much. Until next episode, guys.